So today we're going to talk about how fear is one of the biggest risks to affecting and damaging your professional connections, and actually how it's one of the best things for you. Now, imagine standing at the edge of a networking event, feeling that like really familiar knot of anxiety, right? Your brain is screaming 1,000 reasons not to approach anyone. Now, again, here's the secret. That fear isn't your weakness, it's actually your competitive advantage. Now, there's a lot of psychology around this, right? People naturally perceive themselves as less socially desirable than they are. That's called the liking gap. Our evolutionary brain wiring actually makes social rejection feel like a survival threat. Now, if we think back to this, right? In this day and age, if someone shuns us or we go to an event and someone doesn't want to talk to us, logically, like, doesn't really matter, right? If a past client takes a little too long to respond to a message, or if a prospect says, hey, I'm not interested in working with you, that's okay. Challenge is that our cave person wiring is actually wired to see that as a social threat, because it used to be that any kind of social exclusion would of course kick us out of tribe, or we lose those relationships, and if we were left alone in the tundra, we'd be eaten by saber-toothed tigers and die of starvation. That obviously doesn't happen as much these days, but we still have that same wiring, right? So again, if we are walking into a conference, our brain is still saying, if someone here rejects us, we might get eaten by said saber-toothed tiger. So most professionals are paralyzed by networking anxiety. And I know there's some common misconceptions, right? We all have this fear of seeming salesy. We feel bad about losing contact with someone, and that leads to shame. We have this anxiety over what to say. We worry about being perceived as inauthentic. Now, again, I mentioned at the intro that I believe that your fear is not necessarily a blocker, but it's actually one of your best advantages. And I'll share 3 ideas why. Number 1, your fear is actually a signal of potential growth, not a stop sign. Meaning it's saying, hey, whoa, we haven't done something like this. This feels uncomfortable. And I don't need to be the umpteenth, personal growth guru. I'll leave it for them. But you know this, that you're doing things uncomfortable that are outside of your comfort zone can actually lead to potential growth. So yes, building a relationship with someone who might feel a little bit above your station, right? Or going to an event and saying hi to someone that you wouldn't normally do, right? Or reaching out to a past client in a way that you haven't done in the past. Yes, that feels uncomfortable at first, but then you build that muscle. It wouldn't be obvious, but I actually used to be an incredibly introverted person, right? The idea of me going up and talking to a stranger was a completely foreign thing. But I had enough experiences in college, half of my student group go and knock on doors and talk to a lot of strangers, and it was awful at first, and then it got easy, right? And then it became fun, like a game. And so now one of my favorite things is to go up to an event or party and meet someone who I haven't yet. The other key insight I have for you is to think about most other people have the exact same fear as you. Most people feel bad about reaching out to a past client if it's been so long. Most people worry about coming across as salesy or having some ulterior motive if you reach out to someone. So most people have that fear, and most people stop. Therefore, you can look around and say, wait a second, most other people would have given up by now. What happens if I'm the person that reach out? So one of my key guiding mantras for a lot of the work I do with thousands of professionals is just remember that most people won't. Now, an actual tool that you can think about implementing, it's very simple. It's the idea of just thinking about what is the worst thing that's going to happen. So in most of my programs, I work with clients to do things like reach out to a bunch of people that they haven't recently. And one of the questions I always ask is, hey, has anyone responded back and saying, hey, go away, I hate you, I'm gonna give you a 1-star review on Yelp, I'm going to post a picture on social media and saying, who is this joker? No? No one? Oh. okay, well, maybe it's not necessarily as bad as I think it's going to be. So this concept of thinking about what is the actual worst case scenario. And for you, what is the worst case scenario, right? If you go and reach out to someone that you haven't spoken to in a few years, probably the worst thing that's gonna happen is they just don't respond, right? They say nothing at all. Or really, the worst thing, right, you can think about is, what if you reach out to someone who you want to stay in touch with and they say, hey, you know what? I'm working with someone else. Please remove it from your list. I actually say that's a gift, because that is one less person that you have to think about trying to maintain touch with and thinking about and putting in your CRM, and instead focus on everyone else there, right? You're able to pay more time and attention to all of your other clients because that person said that they're not interested. So it gives you the ability to pay more time and attention to. If you are at a conference, worst case, you go up to someone and they're a little bit awkward, or it's clear they're not interested in talking to you. Great, cool, move on. That's their problem, right? And you can go from there. Actually, one of the reframes I have is, instead of obsessing about what could go wrong, you can actually think about, what opportunity am I creating by this? What is the upside? I think we'll find more often than not the upside far outweighs the downsides. So I'll give you a little tactic. We're obviously not live right now, but if we were live together, I would say do this. I want you to open up your phone. I want you to find someone in your contacts or past messages who you haven't spoken to in a couple weeks, couple months, someone who it would feel a little uncomfortable, like that fear of coming across salesy, they're gonna ask what I'm gonna say. All you have to do is just saying, hey, just thinking of you, and then hover your finger over the send button and use Mel Robbins' strategy, count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and press send. And we'll find that the fear we have very quickly dissipates. Now, I record a lot of videos around building and maintaining professional relationships, and one of the biggest blockers that causes most people to stop acting entirely is fear. The fear of coming across as salesy, the fear of not knowing what to say, the fear of what if. And I want you to remember that most people encounter that fear. It's in our wiring, and most people won't take any action whatsoever. You, however, can be the person that presses send.